least access file system. So Tahoe LAFS is an open source decentralized data store that attempts to preserve privacy and security even in the case where individual nodes are compromised. So this really deserves its own talk, and unfortunately I won't have time to go too deeply here, but Aaron Cordova gave a talk about his Hadoop over Hadoop over Tahoe approach, and actually you can download it from Google Code where he has a project set up. But what's really interesting about Hadoop over Tahoe is that it's intended to be used in infrastructure as a service cloud computing environments. So in those environments, your physical disk isn't really a physical disk, right? So how can you really trust it, especially if you don't have insight into your particular infrastructure as a service provider's network and infrastructure? So let's not trust the disk, right? And the network can't be trusted either because if you're contracting the services of some infrastructure as a service provider, how do you actually know what's going on behind the scenes and that your communication can't be sniffed or modified by some malicious third party? And so what happens here though is that making those security guarantees has a cost. And that cost is that write performance is severely impacted. But fortunately, read performance comes through pretty well. So, especially in a number of use cases, read performance is significantly more important than write performance. So for some users, this is a legitimate approach. But I just find it really interesting because I think there are a number of ways we can go about securing Hadoop, and this is an alternative strategy. So let's say you are a security consultant and you wander into your client and performing a network pen test or some sort of application assessment. What should you focus on when you walk in the door? Well, so these are your targets. The topic of a workflow manager, this is a very open question. There are multiple workflow managers. Yahoo would probably like to see Oozie become the default. And Oozie, in order to perform its job, it's a super user, and it can impersonate any user in the Hadoop cluster. So if you can compromise the machine that Oozie is running on, you just took control of the entire Hadoop cluster. And also remember that the web UI authentication for Oozie has not been implemented yet, and may be implemented by your client, and may be implemented poorly by your client. So it's an area that should receive special review. Also, the name nodes and data nodes. So, why would you want to rob the data nodes? Well, that's where the data is. The money is. The data, right? And so, what you want to look for here is those secret keys. And so keep listening, and maybe you'll get one, or maybe you'll find a misconfigured box, misconfigured in some other way you can gain access to. Insecure data transports. This is going to be a problem for most Hadoop users. Most will have if they are using Hadoop with security, they will be using the default quality of protection of authentication only. And there's currently no guidance on running Hadoop with transport security or with message level security. And finally, these HDFS proxies. If you find a deployment with these HDFS proxies, remember they're doing IP-based authentication, and could be a way to gain access to all of the data stored in HDFS and very quickly. And then there is the issue of the tokens, which we discussed. And so all of these sensitive tokens must be protected when they're transmitted over the network, but they probably aren't. And they're useful for varying lengths of time, and without the ability to renew the tokens, you're going to be limited to, you're going to be time boxed to, 24 hours or less. But look for them. They're very useful. These are kind of in descending order of what I consider importance, with the delegation token, being really powerful, since you can communicate to the name node and get access to data that way. The name node knows where all the information is. The block access tokens are useful, but require additional effort to locate data, and the job token is equally useful. So Hadoop is increasingly used at very large scale. We're not going to see these approaches to distributed computing going away anytime soon, and because of the sensitive data of much of the information we store in our networks, we're going to require stronger security guarantees than Hadoop can currently make. Right now, it still requires either a significant investment on the part of the person who is deploying Hadoop, or requires equally strong network segmentation. So this is going to be a really exciting area to watch, and I hope you all have enjoyed my talk. I'll take questions off of the podium, and thank you for coming.